Jonathan Halo. Credit card. Narrated by Jesse Levine. Good evening, everyone. This is your host, Jess, and, Microsoft, blah, 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 Xbox. I mean, everyone kind of already knows the story at this point in time, but what people really don't know is the other thing that has been coming out of the Xbox situation. Crazy, I know! There's more crap! And today we actually have a very special opportunity. Because of Xbox dumping stuff on the side of the road that they don't really want anymore, I got exclusive access to this giant paper document that includes a bunch of sensitive details about Xbox! Now, what are those sensitive details? Well, besides listing, there's like a bunch of images of a headless chicken. There are also a couple of Halo clips in there. There's a couple pieces of Halo gameplay in there for some reason. I don't understand why. None of that really makes sense to me. I can't really explain that to you. But, that's just, I don't know. It's kind of just a Microsoft deal, I guess, at this point. Or Xbox. I don't know. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, they're basically the same person at this point. But Xbox is poop, blah, blah, blah. They don't got no Xbox no more. Yada, yada, yada. So here's the big thing that I found in this bunch of documents. You ready for it? It's not Bill Gates' lost fortune. Also, Bill Gates is still alive, so you couldn't even get that lost fortune. It's not like Blackbeard's pirate trove. But, in fact, it is something that is very unique to Xbox in of itself. So, it has nothing in relation to just buying up a bunch of studios or canceling games. I know. Everyone is excited to hear that. But, unfortunately, that's already in public knowledge. I wish I could break that story. But, I mean, we can't get everything we want in life, We have a lot of unfortunate circumstances that surround us in our daily life. Like my alcoholism problem. But, we address these things one thing at a time. And sometimes, we can't really address it that well. And, I feel like a kind of a bit of a poopy head. But anyways, point being, so with that being said, Xbox has started moving all of their stuff away from consoles, and now they're going with the Xbox Switch Steam Deck ass thing and Game Pass. So I imagine they're still doing development studios and whatnot, but on this piece of paper, which I still have not actually explained what it is yet, this is one of the most important documents in Xbox and Microsoft history. This predates the creation of the Xbox before Halo made Xbox, the Xbox, a staple name in the market of gaming in general. Now, here it is. The document says what to do with an entire can of lead paint. And you might be thinking, why would Xbox have any relation with lead paint at all? And it's actually a lot more simple than you really think about, because when you think about lead paint, it's obviously banned because lead paint gets into the air. It's not good for the lungs and stuff and whatnot. You don't put lead paints in your pipes and whatnot because, well, then you get lead poisoning, and that's not fun, and we don't want that because, we love our drinking water the way it is. But why does Microsoft, Xbox, them all, why is there a how to use lead paint, an entire can of lead paint? I don't really know. It's kind of weird. But I did say it was simple. It is still rather simple, but weird. So, in the creation of the Xbox, we have to first understand what a console is. A console is a device meant to play games. Without games, the console has no purpose. It is useless. Which is why Xbox has been hitting the pooper, because they don't have games to throw on their consoles because they keep closing their studios and canceling games. Classic Xbox. We love you, Xbox. Keep it up. But the whole strategy behind Xbox's system selling is lead paint. Why did Xbox have Halo as its system seller? Because when Bungie was developing Halo, they put a bunch of things into a can of lead paint, and they shook it around until suddenly something plopped out, and it just happened to be Halo. And when they were building the console, yes, the console, they put an entire can of lead paint into the Xbox console. Now, for starting off, this was a really good idea. Halo, massively successful. The Xbox, also successful as well. And it was a very good idea, surprisingly, throwing an entire can of lead paint into your games and also your console really worked out. Like, generally surprising that the secret was lead paint this entire time. And that helped create the success going up to the 360, where they started pouring even more lead paint into all of their games and system. Like, the Xbox 360 loved the 360, except when it didn't work. So, if you ever got, like, the Red Ring of Death, yeah, that was kind of the lead paint right there. Yeah, you know, it's like, it has its faults. The lead paint does have some hardware drawbacks. It doesn't exactly work well with a lot of the electronic software, but, I mean, it worked. It worked for the most part until it didn't work. And the games, I mean, you put, like, what is it? You go to a computer, you pour lead paint on it, and boom, you have a game. Like, you already had Halo 3. And Halo 3 threw, like, the 360 out the door. You know, it was like, hi, honey, I am going to work today. Bloop, 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 bloop. I am going to work. Bloop, 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 bloop. That's kind of how it was the entire time. And it's just like, all right, cool. And, you know, Xbox was pouring lead paint onto all of their things. Like the 360, and then they got the black 360 that actually functioned. And it's like, you know, they just put more lead paint into it. I mean, it really was that simple. Just pour lead paint onto everything, and suddenly it worked. And, you know, Bill Gates, gotta say, props. You know, you threw lead paint at something, and it worked. And the issue is with this system is now we're seeing the issue of constantly throwing lead paint at stuff. So, if you have an open can of paint, I mean, the can will eventually dry out. I mean, it's not rocket science, so... Now, the issue that Microsoft had is that they kept the original can of paint from the Xbox era. So when did Halo come back? That was all the way back in 2001. Do you know how long ago 2001 was? At least 2. And that's a lot of time that has passed since 2001. And looking back at it, keeping out a can of lead paint for longer than like a year is a really bad idea. But, you know, it just happened to work out that the can of paint just did not dry up. Like, it was the miracle can of lead paint. And what ended up happening was we get our issue of, now that we're approaching the end of the Xbox 360's life, the can of lead paint started to dry up. Now, the issue with that being is, they've been using a singular can of red paint. Like, how did they not run out of lead paint? And here is the answer to this. It infinitely generates lead paint. It's one of those, like, kind of like, you know, actually, I don't really know. I don't really know how that works. Like, that was redacted in, like, the documents of how it keeps regenerating lead paint. I think it's, like, some very secret patented thing that you have to be, like, a lawyer on to be able to, like, get access to and stuff and whatnot. But I don't understand it. But it was able to constantly generate lead paint. Now, the issue with that is it's like eventually the paint will dry up. While it is constantly making lead paint, it does slowly dry up over time. So when we get that year lifespan that I was talking about, it could last a lot longer because it generated paint. Now, what we're seeing is by the time like the Xbox One started to roll around, I mean, the lead paint was starting to like dry up. And now when we get to the Xbox One, they just did not have as much lead paint to pour on the Xbox One. And you saw the fiscal year for like Xbox and Xbox One games. It was not good. It was not the best compared to the 360 and just Xbox in general. This was not good for Xbox, and Xbox has not really recovered in fixing their can of lead paint. So when you see Xbox fumbling around a lot and throwing money at willy-nilly, it is kind of a distraction of what's happening in the background. Is they're training their best scientists to get the lead paint production back in business, so they could have tried to save the Xbox One and the games that they were making exclusive for it. Unfortunately, what we found out was that the lead paint, it could not get wet again. And it was rather unfortunate, because if Microsoft managed to develop something to get that lead paint can working again, we could have seen such a prosperous era from Microsoft and Xbox. And after Xbox One, you kind of could just see the excitement for Xbox products just dwindle, because there was still a bit of lead paint in Xbox One, But as we get to like the Xbox One S, the Scarlet, and the whatever else they've been developing, they were just clearly out of lead paint. All their games apparently were out of lead paint. That's the reason why they canceled exclusives. They ran out of lead paint to pour into their exclusives. And so they just had to just go cross-platform for all of those. And that's really the secret to it. They just ran out of their lead paint. And the problem with that is you just don't have that same kind of just fire behind your production, right? Because it was all based on the lead paint model. And because they've been trying so hard to just try to restart the lead paint model, they didn't have a system of production in the background that could supplement the lead paint that was basically gone now. And so you see where Microsoft fumbled the bag here. Xbox, Microsoft, same thing. They were trying to save a model that just was not working for them. And what ended up happening was when the lead paint officially dried up, they were left with nothing. They had no support system. And so now you had Microsoft panic just throwing money at stuff because all of that money that went to saving the lead paint system, well, I mean, it's like, I mean, you see the fireplace. It was basically all going to the fireplace. It was basically Band-Aid after Band-Aid after Band-Aid. And they did try other paints. Like, they even tried the same brand of lead paint, but they could not recreate the special self-regenerating paint. They tried using also the same brand and same type of lead paint. It didn't work. Because it was a specifically modified thing of lead paint specifically for games. And it was Bungie that originally had that. But, I mean, you're not going to find those original Bungie employees anymore, even though Microsoft is like, hello there, Activision Blizzard. I have come for thee. And because it's like, I mean, there's been a lot of issues that happen with Bungie and Destiny and blah, 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 blah. That's a whole other drama. But the people who originally created that self-regenerating lead paint that's also modified specifically for games, it's gone. It's all gone. And Microsoft has just been worrying sick about that. They've been trying to find those old employees, but, you know, like, you just can't find them. They either found other work or really did not like the relationship they had with Microsoft. And it is a really unfortunate set of circumstances that we have here, where you have a very talented team who essentially struck gold for Xbox and Microsoft. And now that Microsoft is like, oh no, I'm pooping the pants, they come to them in their time of need, but they could not be found whatsoever. And it is just an absolute shame to see. And now that we've kind of come to the precipice of this, what does Microsoft need to do forward here with their lead thing of lead paint now that it's not working? Well, I don't really know. I feel like this is a very difficult question to answer. When you've been dependent on something for so long, how do you switch to something new? And I think now going to the oil-based paint model, I think is kind of a, like, I don't know. I don't really know what to think about it. I think we kind of have to wait and see now what they're doing with the oil-based paint model. In my opinion, I don't like it. I think this is trying to save another version of the lead paint model, and it's just going to slowly be going downhill still, when really I feel like they need to switch to a more like renewable paint because they can keep it wet for longer. They still need to develop specifically for video games, but if they're able to get a model that's working again, I think that would be very good. The thing is, the oil-based paint model is a bit cheaper and you don't have to worry about it as much, but I think this is a big mistake. And when you need to have something that is built for the long term, I don't think the oil-based paint model is going to last long term. And that's just simply my opinion. Well, anyways, I'm gonna eat this thing of lead paint I found on the side of the road. Alright, I'll see you all. Bye-bye.